Welcome back, guys, to a brand new chapter of an AI Dungeon Adventure Book 2. Last time we got dragged to the bottom of the ocean by a gigantic fucking kraken and got pushed into a underwater tunnel which led us to the underwater city of Mortas. So now we are finally ready to head into Mortas and look for Freeman's whereabouts. The lost prince, who we are currently searching for. So, the last line that was written was, "So this is Mortas. What were Freeman doing here, you say?" and walk to the city gate. So we can start by typing in, you walk over to the guards at the gate. "What are you doing here?" the guard asks. "We came to look for some friends that were captured here. We need to get into this city," you say. "You came from the surface?" Oh wow, yeah, I actually picked up on that. I guess the thing about friends that were captured is like a cover-up story. So I'm gonna just answer, yes, we are from the surface. Do you think we can enter the great city? Try to be a bit polite. I haven't recorded an AI dungeon video in like 3 weeks, so I'm sorry if there are some minor mistakes and issues here and there, but you know, it happens every episode, so. The guard says, "I have to check with my captain. Just stand still, I must go call the captain." Okay. I'm just gonna stay still then. Let the AI continue. He walks away and disappears through a door in the gate. You hear him say some words and then the door opens and he comes back out. Okay? So, any news? "You can enter the city, but you must prove to the captain that you are from the surface," the guard says. Oh, wow. He walks away to another door in the gate and disappears. How can we prove that we're from the surface? He just left. So, how? What? How can we... okay, I'm just gonna let the AI continue. That guy just gave us a big fucking quest and just disappeared. You wait impatiently and then the guard comes back. "Follow me." The gate opens and all three of you walk into the city. Okay, nice. You know what? The AI can just take it from here. It's been really detailed and written good segments so far. So tell me, Captain, what happened to your fish eyes, you ask. Oh, what? Okay. Retry. The streets are lined with houses similar to the one you were just in, but smaller. The house I was just in? What? The buildings are all built of a light material, almost seeming to be made of plastic. Okay, that's a bit too... yeah, a bit too weird. I'm just gonna type in, you look at the city as you follow the guard. That way we can get like a nice description of what the city actually looks like from within. Mortas really is a floating city. It is even bigger than the surface town you came from. You are surrounded by water and the buildings rise right out of the water. Oh wow. The buildings, I should remove that and write houses. Okay. Really unique city, in other words. You follow the guard to the captain. Okay, let's get some intel now. Some info. You walk along a dockside. A dockside? Oh, I guess that's like an exit gate. And on both sides of the docks are long boats with men in blue and orange clothing loading and unloading cargo. Oh, maybe they are like trading with the surface people, like with us. The guard leads you over to a large warehouse type warehouse. Got it. Okay, I think I'll retry that one. The guards lead you through the city and up a set of stairs and onto a small plateau. You're now at the captain's office. Oh, wow, okay. So, what are you three doing here? The captain asks. You look at the captain? I kind of want a bit more description of what he looks like. The captain is a large creature with a body that most certainly has been mutated. Its eyes are extremely large and visible, and it has thin, slicked back hair. The blue skin looks unnaturally smooth and vibrant. Oh my god. Fucking give the AI an award, an Oscar, just anything. That was perfect. I love it. Okay. Greetings, Captain of the Mortos Guard. Need to be polite. We're talking with almost royalty. The three of us are currently in the search of the lost Prince Freeman himself. I heard he sought refuge here some time ago. Has he left? The guard looks at you and then at Mary and finally at Thaddeus. The guards look at you and says, yeah, okay. So they examine all of us and then finally say, Freeman is on the mainland. He was seen heading south. Why south? That is the last place we would expect to find him. We were expecting him to be here on the island. Okay, so he's back on the surface. And heading south. Did he leave any kind of message? Did he say or tell you where he was heading? And now, ladies and gentlemen, I will transition over to a very, very long pre-written segment, because the AI had some difficulties with progressing at this point in the story, and there were some story bits that I really wanted to write myself. So I hope you enjoy this, and yeah, enjoy the rest of the episode. Did he leave anything behind? Any clue, message, anything at all? Galder asks in a curious and exaggerated tone. Unfortunately, no, but there was one thing he said before leaving. If anything happens, at Rice Peak, see through the fog when the sun is at half. And then he left. Someone is saying that he were to meet someone there, but we don't know. The message seemed a bit fabricated. Well, I have a job to do. Pleasure meeting you all. The captain walks back to the barracks and leaves the three of them to themselves. Well, I guess we should head south then. Are any of you familiar with that area? Galder asks while looking at Thaddeus and Mary. I grew up in the south. I've heard of Rice Peak. It was full of ghost stories when we were younger. No one dared get close to it, as it's rumored that the dead will abduct you. That was the only thing we got to know, at least. I don't know where to find it or how we can locate it, Thaddeus explains, scratching his chin and walking back and forth. Well, let's check out what the city has to offer before heading to the surface, shall we? Galder, Thaddeus and Mary head into the city's main street. There are people here in all shapes and sizes, but everyone is blessed with the same water blue tone to their skin. Galder heads into a weaponsmith's shop. The man behind the counter is a big, bald man with very black eyes and beard. Can I get you anything? He asks, while drinking from a large mug. Yes, my old greatsword here could use some refining. Maybe a new hilt too. The edge has gotten duller and duller the last few months, so if there is anything you can do to improve it, I will pay for it, even though I only have 6 thillies, Galder explains, while showing the smith his sword from all sides. Oh, you think I can fix that at the price of 6 thillies? No way, my lad, it will cost you about 20 thillies to refine this dull sword, and even then it would turn out quite useless, he answers, as polite as possible. Is it that bad? What could have caused such damage to it? He grabs the sword and points at 3 specific locations. There, and here. These are all locations which have been severely destroyed. I can't seem to understand how, though. It would take years of training to be able to learn how to deconstruct a sword like that. Maybe Draconite blades have done it, or Ifrithil blade warriors, or an Eastern Kedarian swordsman. You know, those from Shinkensu. You ought to know. The blacksmith elaborates, still examining the blade thoroughly. A Shinkensuan swordsman have destroyed my sword? Oh, of course, Shinjin, Galder says as he is reminded of his duel against Shinjin back in Shinkensu. Shinjin? What kind of fucking name is that? Sounds like a fucking drink, mate, the smith laughs. Well, what can I do about it? Oh, I would recommend a new one, unless you are rich, of course. I'm not. I can see that. The blacksmith grabs Galder's sword and tightens his grip around the edge until it breaks. What? That was a gift from the Marshal of Chaldean himself. When I graduated, Galder yells. I could tell. It seems like the dear Marshal of Chaldean gave you a poorly made graduation sword. The royalty over there is always giving out that ogre's ass wrapped in a golden bun, you get me? These are shit. They would never give you a fine sword. You're not royalty, so you don't deserve stuff like that. It's the same for us all. The smith throws the pieces out the door and closes it. However, I can tell that you are in dire need of a sword. Follow me, would ya? He motions for Galder to follow him into a storage room filled with armors, weapons, and shields. He picks up a greatsword from the left shelf, a sword with a silver hilt. It has no adornments, no rubies, sapphires, or emeralds embedded into it. It looks rather dull. Or this beauty. This I can give you for 6 thillies. Galder grabs the handle and swings it around a bit. It feels oddly heavy for its size. It's not pretty and it does not even feel sharp. Is this really it, blacksmith? The smith picks up an iron shield and nods at Galder, motioning for him to strike at it. Galder does so, but to no avail. The sword is still dull. Hey, look at me, kid. Pretend like I'm your enemy. Face me as a hero, not a trainee. Galder swings yet again, more determined this time, but nothing seems to change. Look, to be able to master the full potential of this weapon, you need to look deep within your darkest memories. Picture one that you miss, one that you hate, one that you fear, and one that you forgot. How am I supposed to, Galder says, but he's stricken by a sensational feeling. In that moment, everything he could see was one that he missed, a red-haired woman, one that he forgot, a man in chains in the far north, one that he hates, an emperor feasting from a royal meal, and one that he fears. Morgek. Galder's adrenaline starts to spread throughout his body. His pupils shrink, his muscles tightens. His whole life is rushing through his head. Old, broken memories are showing themselves. He strikes. The blade, filled with Galder's energy, burst out in flames, sparkling and burning from hilt to edge. Oi, that's what I'm talking about, lad. Your true potential, glowing through your weapon right there. Your strength does not lie in the weapon you use, it's how you use it. Galder lowers his shoulders and breathes out. What is this? Oh, this, kid, is the secrets of Thilliaras. And Galder smiles as the man pats him on the shoulder. He pays the man the 6 thillies for the sword and head for the door. Oi, kid, you got to have a lot of aggression inside you. Make sure to use it on the real enemies. Got it? I got it. Thanks. You remind me of my father, you know. He's also a blacksmith. I make sure to show him that sword of yours. I will, Galder say, and waves the blacksmith farewell. Galder walks out into the open streets again. It looks like people are starting to close their shops for the day. He sees Mary coming out of a tailor store wearing a red cape, exactly similar to the black cape she used to wear. Galder, look, it's red, she claims excitingly. I can see that. It looks nice, but it's the exact same cape though. No, it's not. The previous one was black. This is velvet crimson with a hint of ashen flowers, she states, a bit disappointed. It sure is, Galder says and smiles at her as she starts to laugh. They both walk across the street looking for Thaddeus, but he's nowhere to be found. After checking out nearly every store, they hear a faint singing from within a tavern. There he is, with his legs crossed, a lute on his lap, and 3 prostitutes embracing him as he sings some kind of strange fairy tale out of tune. Greetings, Thaddeus. Ready to leave? Ahoy, Galder. The man, the myth, the legend. Look at him, girls. This guy only got one eye. He lost it to a bear with dragon wings. Galder's temper starts to rise as he grabs Thaddeus by his arms and pulls him out of the chair. You remind me strangely of a friend I once had. Oh, I am a bear too. When the moonlight shines across the skies, I turn into a dragon. Very nice, just don't pull out my other eye, Galder say, smiling at Mary and bursting out in laughter. The 2 of them walk to the city gates with Thaddeus between them, unable to walk by himself. The group finally arrives at the city gates, which towers over them. They head outside and meet the guard from earlier, still on duty. Heading back? He asks. Yes, but how do we get up to the surface from here? You just walk across the plateau, and when it ends, you will be shot back into the air. Okay, seems good enough, Galder say as he walks straight forward and feel an enormous pressure dragging him up to the surface. The pressure is painful, but everything is happening so fast that he can't process it at all. After about 10 seconds, he's shot sky high up in the air, followed by a screaming Mary and a drunk Thaddeus, and they all land on this sand-covered shoreline. Galder gets up, sand in his hair and water soaking his clothes. He walks over to Mary and help her up as Thaddeus walks around singing to himself. Where are we? It looks like we're at the other side of the sea, in the southern Thilliaras. Well, we are on the right track at least, Galder say, and they move into the forest in front of them. Galder and his companions decide to camp at a nearby forest clearing they discovered along the way. The clearing is surrounded by a thick mass of white ash trees and tall grass. Such is the nature of these parts of the continent. Beyond the clearing is a large cliff that stands proud over the vast Thilliaran landscape. They sit down and gaze through the ashen leaves and onto the cliff leading out to the large valley. They hear the sound of a large waterfall not too far away from them, and their nose is filled with the smell of soft grass. Galder looks at the horizon, the velvet evening sky and the leaves blowing in the cool breeze. Thaddeus, who has now sobered up, prepares a campfire for their meal, and Mary lies down at the grass to rest. I've used enough magic for a while. You will have to do the fighting from here on out, she says, looking at the skies. We will rest here for the night. Won't you be ready to cast spells again tomorrow? Galder asks, placing his sword next to a tree trunk. Huh? Mary quickly gets up and looks at Galder with a frustrated look. How do you think magic works? She says, slightly annoyed. What do you mean? My girl back home is a mage. She used spells all the time, so yeah, I know how they work, Galder answered calmly. She even has a child on the way, but that didn't stop her from using spells. She's great. Mary gives Galder a disgusted look with terror in her eyes. She was... What? She's pregnant, yes. Why do you think I wish to get back? Galder answered, with a slightly disturbed look. He looks at Thaddeus, who was supposed to start a fire, but is now staring coldly into the ground with a shocked face. "What's the matter with you?" Galder yells. "A magician uses life energy to cast spells. They use the life force around them. That be trees, animals, but when they don't have anything in reach, they use their own." Galder's face drops and his eyes widen. The silence is interrupted by the howl of the wind. Life force? Mary quickly gets on her feet. Yes, but it's in minuscule portions. One decent fire orb equals 1 minute of your life, but a large fireball can shave off an entire hour of your life. That's how it works, she explains, trying to calm Galder down. So she's okay, right? It's nothing to worry about? She is. I too have used a lot of spells throughout my life, but I'm not dead, am I? It's not too big of a deal. Some magicians live up to the age of 80 sometimes. The thing I am worried about is the pregnant. She starts to elaborate, but is abruptly interrupted by Thaddeus. Okay, all set. Everything is fine with Malek, and we are gonna have a delicious meal, right? I can play a song. Do you want to hear the one about Beldoc the Bellringer, Galder? Galder turns away and walks towards the cliff and sits down, taking in the view. Maybe later. Thaddeus walks over to Mary and whisper, "Don't tell him about it. Let's spare him the bad news." The night slowly consumes the sky as the crew falls asleep. Galder, however, didn't manage to close his eyes that night. He had too much to think about. In the morning, Mary walks over to Galder. "I apologize for the aggressive tone last night," she says, looking sympathetically at him. "It's fine, don't worry about it. It's just too many things going on these days," he answers with a forced smile. "I just wonder why I didn't know about the secret of magic, and I guess this is why some people refuse to use it. We Valias elves tried to tell Kedar for a long time, but your people threw us out. You abandoned us. You and your people are knowledgeable creatures trapped behind the court of a naive emperor, and so it has been since the Age of Ancients." Galder looks at the horizon before getting up and grabbing his sword. "I can't help it. I agree," he say, smiling. The group move across the plains of southern Thilliaras at a slow pace. Galder is moving rapidly with Thaddeus, who currently suffers from a heavy headache after consuming unbearable amounts of beer in Mortas, walking behind him. Mary is walking next to them, a bit ashamed about last night's argument. There is an odd silence between the three of them. Mary brings up a map she bought in Mortas, which supposedly will show them how to navigate through the whole continent. But the map seems old and therefore hard to read. "Okay, so I think I can make out what's written here. Varagos," she say out loud, looking at them for any sort of feedback. "Varangianos," Thaddeus explains. "It's a minor city at the northwestern part of southern Thilliaras. Not much is known about it other than the city being kinda independent. Some royal political agreement centuries ago. I don't know anything beyond that." They all look at the map and examine the landscape around Varangianos thoroughly. "And where did people say Rice Peak was located?" Galder asks Thaddeus. "I know very little of it. We weren't that interested in it, but if I dig deep, I think it was something like north for Thumare and east for Rock." "And which one of these were your hometown?" Galder asks. "Rock. That's where I grew up. And Varangianos were a city quite east for Rock. So I guess Rice Peak will be somewhere between Rock and Varangianos, but also north for Thumare, which is quite unspecific. If we follow that path, we will end up at the northwestern shore anyway, so I guess we need to just follow the shoreline and look for a tall peak," Thaddeus explains, scratching his head and looking at the sky while motioning with his fingers. "Well, doesn't sound bad," Galder said to himself, and the three of them continue on the wide path. After half a day following the shoreline, they get quite tired by the sound of waves constantly smashing at the huge rocks down by the ocean. They are quite high up, at least 30 meters, and Thaddeus dares not look down. "Scared of heights, are you?" Galder asks, smirking as he taps Thaddeus at his shoulder. "Well, yeah. Why wouldn't I?" Thaddeus answers, his voice shivering and vibrating. "Don't worry, after confronting it, you won't even notice heights anymore." "How come? Have you been on a mountain before?" "Better. The back of a flying dragon," Galder states. "Look," Mary shouts, pointing at an odd pointy peak standing proudly above the ocean. It's thin and looks quite unstable. This has to be it. Mary moves forward, examining the peak before slowly stepping on it and walking towards the steep edge. Thaddeus walks even further away from the edge, trembling with fear. Galder gazes at it, but somehow it doesn't feel special at all. See through the fog when the sun is at half? That were Freeman's words, right? Well, we got one problem. Where the fuck is the fog? They stand there and watch the sun go down. It takes about an hour and Thaddeus is already half asleep. Even Galder struggles keeping his eye up. His concentration is starting to break. "There! The sun is half up and half down! This should be it, right?" Mary yells, waking up Thaddeus. "Seems like nothing is happening. Maybe we have the wrong peak. And to be honest, this does not look like a peak at all, more like a..." Galder stops talking as he hears a bell ringing in the distance. They can't seem to place the direction it is coming from, but it's ringing exactly 3 times. In Thilliaras, nobility is often ringing their bells before getting visitors, and the exact same amounts of visitors is the equivalent to the amounts of rings from the bell. As Galder looks around confused, he noticed the wind blowing heavily and particles flying in front of him, slowly forming a wall of fog, blocking the path towards the peak. Well, I'll be damned. Fog. He gets up on his feet and slowly moves towards the fog with Mary close behind. "See through it, only one way to do so," Galder says and takes a step into the heavy fog wall, completely engulfing him. Mary looks back at Thaddeus, who is still laying on the grass, quite shocked. She turns her head at the fog wall and takes a step towards it before being dragged inside too. Thaddeus is at loss of words, running around in circles, not knowing whether he should follow them or just take off. This is wild. I'm not doing this. I am out from the fog," comes Galder's hand, grabbing Thaddeus' vest and dragging him inside with them. Thaddeus' scream is echoing through the ocean as he, too, disappears into the fog. Inside there is nothing but heavy mist surrounding them. Galder looks around, but to no avail. Everything is similar. He takes a step forward and starts marching into the deep, grey mist. Mary is close behind with Thaddeus and his shivering legs. They move through the mist and eventually lose sight of Galder. They follow the direction and emerges from the fog. The fog quickly disappears behind them, and they find themselves in front of the same peak as previously, but this time the ocean reaches the peak, acting as a harbor. "Did the peak shrink, or did the ocean grow?" asks Thaddeus, still frightened. "I don't think we are in the same place anymore," Galder says and points at the sky. The sky is a dark blue color, like night suddenly fell upon them, and the moon is shining across the ocean with a bright yellow color to it. Thaddeus and Mary lets out a heavy scream, so heavy that Galder couldn't tell which of them had the highest screaming tone. They point in front of them, and Galder, unaware of his surroundings, notices a rowboat in the water with a lantern at the bow. A man is sitting in the boat, casting some sort of spell on it, making it row by itself. The boat is coming closer to them and stops at their feet. He wears a black cloak. There are nothing else to be seen. Only his hands is revealed to them. They are the hands of a skeleton. He motions for them to enter the rowboat, and so they do. Galder first, then Mary, and at last Thaddeus. They all try to get a glimpse of his face, but the man, or should I say creature, does not flinch. He slowly raises his hand and begins doing some strange finger movements as the boat, again by itself, starts rowing back into the ocean. Galder and Mary is now equally as terrified as Thaddeus. The boat is rowing at a slow pace even though the sea is waveless, but eventually Galder gets a glimpse of something in the horizon. He narrows his eye, tries to make out anything of what he sees, but it's too far away. The object in the distant horizon slowly becomes clearer. Galder eventually manages to make out that what he's looking at is a harbor, a road, and up the road behind the harbor is something even greater, the silhouette of a huge castle. It looks like a manor, painted black by the night's shimmering light. It's big, with multiple pikes coming up from the roof, reaching high into the air, almost looking like a cathedral. There are large oval-shaped red glass windows on the castle, with patterns masterfully carved into its stone walls. There is a clock at the largest tower, with 13 hours engraved into it instead of 12 as the usual clocks. The clock tower is telling the time incorrectly. It's not 3 o'clock, Mary explains, pointing at the clock tower. The hooded creature points at Thaddeus, then at Mary, and finally at Galder. Mary lowers her arm. Well, maybe because the owner of this castle is expecting 3 guests, Galder say, his eye fixated at the castle. The boat eventually docks at the harbor and the group climbs up to the rotten wooden plateau. They walk up the old crooked stairway and reach the road they saw earlier, with the castle looming in the horizon. Next to them is a carriage, painted black with old but sturdy wooden wheels. They move to the front, but they can't seem to find the driver. However, the horses carrying the carriage are so terrifying and ungodly that Thaddeus nearly faints by the sight of them. They are without skin and flesh, entirely skeletal. They act as normal horses, kneeing and breathing smoke out of their large nostrils, but still they look dead. Their eyes are also gone, revealing an empty, lifeless head on top of the large skeletal body. No way, this can't be real, Thaddeus yelps. Galder grabs his shoulder. Toughen up, buddy. This, right here, is the thrill of adventures. These visions, feelings, moments, this is the euphoric feeling of being truly alive. You got me? Galder states. Thaddeus feels some sort of comfort and gets up on his feet once again. Right, he say, the insecurity in his voice slightly disintegrating. Should we enter? Mary asks, and the doors on the side of the carriage open by themselves. The 3 of them decide to enter and notice that the carriage smells of emptiness, like a worn-out old wine cellar. The seats inside are made of wood, covered with old stains of wine and beer. The walls inside looks to be almost falling apart, with old wax covering the wood. The candles hanging in a silver handle at the wall suddenly ignites and lights up the small room. Then, the horses scream into the night and immediately starts rushing up the road. The road is uneven, causing the coach to tremble like an earthquake. Galder looks out of the coach wagon and sees the castle at the end of the road slowly unraveling in front of his eyes. The horses carry them to the front gate and immediately stops, opening the doors for them. They get out and enter the large main gate opening up by themselves. A skeleton wearing a tight and solid iron armor stands by the main door, lifeless. They move closely and the skeleton suddenly jumps at them. You frighten me, you nasty, nasty creature. Having low ears like that is not a pleasant sight. You look like you come from Kedar or some other low-life continent. State your reason for interrupting the Lord, the skeleton commands. My name is Galder. I am on a severely important task. I need to find a boy by the name of Fremond. The skeleton stares at him. Nonsense! I am very disappointed. You, out of all people, have no right coming here knocking on the Lord's door asking to see royalty. Away with you! The skeleton retreats back to his corner and acts lifeless yet again. Mary gives Galder a confusing look. I am sorry, honorable knight. I am here to converse with the Lord, Galder say, attempting a different approach. Oh, Well, in that case, I guess it must be important. State your reason, the skeleton says, this time with a polite tone to his dead voice. I have a bone to pick with him, Galder says, and burst out laughing. Mary can't hold herself and starts laughing too. Even Thaddeus can't help himself, and they all stand in front of the guard, humiliating him. Galder stops and looks into the skeleton's dead, empty holes where his eyes would be if he had any. And then, the skeleton too bursts out into laughter, his bones shaking and his helmet trembling on his skull. Ah, I got it. I understood the joke. Well said, Jester. You may now enter. He knocks at the door with his hand, and the doors again open by themselves. Galder is free to enter. The entering hall is a large one. There are plenty of golden ornaments everywhere with red carpets covering the walls. There are heavy chains hanging from the rooftop with braziers attached to it, lighting up the hallway. They walk across the room and start climbing up a staircase at the end of the hall. The staircase leads up to a large door with two statues to the left and right. The one to the right is depicting a knight with a halberd, the other a knight with a shield. They push the doors open and notice at least 6 pairs of eyes staring directly at them. The room is a dining hall with a large wooden table stretching across the floor. There are carpets both under the table and on top of it. A large fireplace is crackling next to them, and an embroidered sigil is placed on top of it, towering over the large dining table. There are more drink than food on the table. Most of it is already consumed. There are even more statues inside the room, and next to them are doors that leads to several other chambers within the manor. Around the table sit 12 different people, all of them staring directly at Galder and his companions. They look like officials, royalty, but something is quite unique with this odd pack of gluttonous money-harvesting nobilities. They are real. They are neither vague nor dead, like every other creature within this castle. They are real people, just like them. Well, to whom do I owe this pleasure? An overweight man says. He's wearing a messy royal outfit with food stains and wine spilled all over it. His face is round and distasteful. A large mustache is covering his upper lip, and a browless pair of eyes is staring aggressively at them. However, before he managed to say another word, his face is caved in with the end of a large halberd, causing his nose to bleed severely. We do not treat a guest with disrespect. However, one of them has short ears, so you have the right to insult him, but the other 2 shall remain uninsulted. Am I clear? A man says with a delicate, deep voice. Oh, of course, my host, I won't do it again. Very well. The man with the halberd puts it aside, rising from the table, staring at Galder's blue eye. He is tall, with grey hair running down the back of his head. His face is thin, long, with a sharp, pointed chin covered with a black goatee. His brows are bushy and his nose crooked. His eyes also crooked. He wears a dark purple outfit with a wine-red cape reaching the floor. The color of the cape matches the handle of his halberd. My, you do have low ears. Which part of Thilliaras are you from, my lad? Galder is almost hypnotized by the man's intense gaze, but he managed to answer accordingly. I'm not from Thilliaras, I'm from Kedar. With that, every guest gasps, some even grab their weapons, other prepares to run. Now, don't get hasty, the crooked man say in a soothing tone as the guests retreat to the table. My name is Lord Malrux, Lord of Rice Keep, this very castle. I am pleased to have you lot as guests, but however, before you can join our feast, I have to demand an answer. Why are you here? The table turns quiet and the royals look at them with disdain. My name is Galder. I'm here to inform you that, as you surely know, the state of Thilliaras is quite horrible, and I need, for personal reasons, to help this continent get back on its feet. I myself pledge to help Fremond, the rightful heir, take back the throne of Lorraine. Galder explains, trying his best to ignore the other guest's wrathful eyes. You seek to find Fremond, do you? Well, there he is, Malloryx say, and point towards the left side of the table. The boy is very short. His hair is golden and curly. His left eye is squinting, looking in another direction than his right. His nose is skewed, and he has a faint hair lip. His arms look like bones without any meat on them, proving that the boy has difficulties building any sorts of muscle. He also suffers from a limping right leg. The boy looks at Galder, or should I say, partly looks at Galder. Hello, my name is Fremond, the boy say, obviously unaware of what Galder just said. He can't help but feel sympathy for the boy. He's not like royalty in any way, but looks rather dull. In a slight second, Galder felt like he could sympathize with Urian's ambition. Seeing Fremond on the throne would be an unpleasant sight. For the first time, Galder doubted his way of thinking. Maybe Urian is the better alternative for a king. Galder shakes off the thought and tries to focus on the situation. He responds, "Hey lad, I'm Galder." The boy looks at Galder and he smiles. An ugly smile, but a real one nonetheless. The boy picks up a lute and starts playing. His interest in music seemed to not be lacking in any way. He doesn't play well either, but it's bearable compared to the music produced by Thaddeus when he's drunk. Galder turns to Malloryx, who smiles at him. So why should you be the one to place Fremond on the throne, Galder? Because I'm the one who banished Morgic, Galder answers rapidly, like he has been dying to tell him. The guests gasp. Morgic, you say, as in the god? Yes. Come with me. Malloryx leads Galder to a hallway. He picks up a candlestick with his magic and makes it float after him as they pass the large statues and marble busts. He eventually leads him to a private room, a library of some sort, and closes the doors. Is what you are telling me true? Malloryx asks Galder, staring deep into his eyes. It is. Well, I have lived a long life, seen more things than you could ever imagine, and still I can't seem to see any lies within your eyes. All right, I believe you. But why should it matter? Malloryx say, looking away. Because I was sent here against my will. Defeating the god was not my job, and so I was banished. I am planning on heading home. But to do that, I need a royal pardon. A royal pardon that even the Emperor would respect, Galder explains eagerly. I see. So you want Fremond to write you a royal pardon. Go on, ask him. I think if you ask well enough, he may learn to write the letter E. My point is, Galder, that Fremond is not capable of anything. That's why we hide him here, far away from Urian's grasp. But if someone were to do the dirty work for us, murder Urian, for example, that would be enough to safely set Fremond on the throne. Agree? I do. So if you were to do this, then I will make Fremond write a royal pardon. Galder's face lights up. Really? Really. But you must understand, Galder. If Fremond gets the throne, the country will become a disaster. But don't worry, that's why we are here, helping him, supporting our king. Galder acknowledged the hesitant choice of words Malloryx used to describe Fremond. He can slowly see what's going on. The royals, the officials, the guests, they are all manipulating him, using him for their own good. And this will turn out even worse if he were to ever get the throne for himself. However, Urian's iron rule will cause the mass murder of thousands of Valia's elves. There is no lesser evil in this scenario. Galder will have to choose for himself. Galder thinks about the prince, the innocent boy, and how he is treated. Galder's blind eye sheds a tear for the boy and his harsh future. I accept, he says and sighs. I accept the job. I will take down Urian in one way or another, and I will make sure that Freemond reclaims the throne. Maloric smiles. Very well, you are welcome to stay here at the manor for as long as you'd like. Do you have any plan on how I can take him down? Galder asks. No, but I know who has. The Redemptionists, which I'm sure you are familiar with in some way, are located in Loranga, the capital city of the Empire of Lorien. Find them at the Lothingolanza Inn in the southern part of the city. They head back into the dining hall and Galder looks at his companions, obviously uncomfortable. Now let me introduce you to the rest of my guests, Maloric says and reach out his hand, pointing it towards them. This fellow next to me with a bleeding nose, the one who insulted you earlier, is none other than Viscount Blamuk of Mana. Next to him we have Baron Volimir of Riesenkrantz. Volimir is a tall and dark-haired man, with a big beard and two deep grey eyes. Moving on, we have the Countess Eleonora of Quays. Eleonora has light curly hair in a bun. Her skin complexion is lighter than the others, with a disgusting, pompous expression. Next up is Lord Thilliaras of Bergren and his wife Lady Cata next to him. Thilliaras looks half asleep. He is bald and looks uninterested in even being there. His wife, who in fact is much younger than him, looks ungrateful and eats the food at the table with her hands as a barbarian. Then we have Freemond, as you already know, and next to him is Freemond's second cousin once removed, Freyhen, Duke of Gillington. Freyhen looks like an older version of Freemond, except prettier. He has a proud look on his face, which certainly makes him look equally as terrible as the other guests. The next one is Orphas, Marshal of Freyheim and Baron of Dunvan Castle. Orphan looks quite different. He wears an eye patch on top of his left eye and has large whiskers on both cheeks. His elven ears, however, unlike the others, have been cut at the top, making them as short as Galder's. It looks like it's been done by force, maybe in a battle many years ago. Next we have Orpha's son, Knight Olivar. Olivar looks like the most reasonable of the guests. He has long black hair covering the sides of his face, and a weakly grown goatee which lacks a mustache. His armor is quite thick and he wields a halberd such as Malorux himself. The next up is Marquis Archibald of Archibald. Oi, it's pronounced Archibald, the Marquis yells. He is extremely short, most likely a dwarf, and has red hair and beard. Next up is Viscountess Hera of Hernish and her daughter Lady Charlotte. The Viscountess has protruding lips and a very long nose. Her daughter Charlotte also has a long nose but has a disgusting set of teeth which makes Thaddeus almost throw up. We are pleased to have you and your friends join this feast, Maloric say and invite them to sit down. The royals seem very upset with the idea of having them join the dining table. I am honored, but we need to move. We have an important errand, Galder say, walking towards the exit. Very well. Before you go, Galder, I have one final task for you. Our personal agreement need to be completed, and to maintain our trust I can't let you go alone. That's why Oliver will come with you, if Orphas would allow it. Malrux say, looking at Oliva. Orpheus gets up. In all these years, I have fought great wars and committed honorable acts for the greater good, only to lose an eye and my air tips. But there is one thing I can't manage to forgive myself for, and that is raising a fucking disaster. This boy, my lad Oliver, can't get anything done. I tried to bring him here to give him some royal fucking attitude, but to no avail. He's a disgrace to the whole Danvan line of barons, and I will gladly send him with you. And if he dies on the way, maybe I'll pay you too. Orpheus yells and laughs. Very well, Malrux say, as Oliver gets up from the table and walks over to Galder. Oliver will represent me on your task. Anything Oliver does will be done in my name. Understood? Malrux states. Sure, Galder answers. Well then, be on your way, Galder. If your task succeeds, I am sure that we will meet again soon. Galder, Mary, Thaddeus, and the new crew member Olivar leave the room and head down the stairs. Olivar, right? Is that halberd yours? Olivar nods. Well, can you use it well enough? Olivar shrugs and slightly nods. Anything the matter? Olivar opens his mouth and reveals a set of teeth and nothing more. There is no tongue there. Oh, you are a mute? Thaddeus yells in surprisement. Olivar turns away, narrowing his eyes. Galder looks at him, then looked back at Thaddeus and Mary. He explained them the situation and his conversation with Malrux. Mary gets quite upset. How dare you throw Thilliaras into the fire like that? You saw how they treated each other in there. Fremont is just a boy. They will manipulate him with all their might and reign with tyranny. Don't you think I know that? But honestly, is it better than having Urian? Have you seen how you Valias are treated in the cities? Have you seen the poverty that will eventually infest the entire continent? Corruption and tyranny is unavoidable. We need to accept that. This is the best way. For now. Galder yells. Mary responds by slapping him in the face, leaving a red mark on Galder's chin. To Mary's surprise, Galder didn't even flinch. He just accepted the hit and let it pass. Are you ready to leave? Galder say, and head towards the exit. And that, everyone, is the end of chapter 3. I really hope you enjoyed this chapter. It was quite a long one and it was mostly written, but I felt like I had to do it and I had to consult with my Discord chat and most of them agreed to just letting me write it. So I suppose that was the best alternative here. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed it and I'll be seeing you in the next chapter. I'm really looking forward to it and I actually loved this chapter and the story so far. So see you then, guys. Take care.